With the end of August, students are regathering in their schools, and teachers are taking their place comfortably or uncomfortably, perhaps, in front of the classroom as a new school year is upon us. The grade books are out, and their pencils are sharpened, and they're ready to roll. That is what we see in the gospel this morning. Jesus, the teacher, and an extraordinary teacher. We see him in front of the Pharisees, and he's carrying his grade book. But before we look at the grades the Pharisees received, we need to go back, you and I, and consider what lesson it was the Pharisees were being graded on. For that, we need to go back a few thousand years in the history of Israel to consider an unprecedented moment in human history. Go back to that moment when God chose a ragtag band of wandering Semites to be God's chosen people. God entered into a special relationship of love with these people. God entered into a covenant saying, I will be your God, and you will be my people. And to preserve that unique relationship of love, like all relationships, there need to be rules for behaviors, clear boundaries within which people can figure out what it means to be healthy together, and that can help ensure the future of that relationship. Every friendship has to come up with its rules, its guidelines, its boundaries. Every family, every marriage, every community has those kinds of boundaries, rules, laws, if you will, to help them be healthy together. And so these people came to these certain laws, these commandments, and that they're written about there in that first reading from the book of Deuteronomy. Moses said to the people, Now, Israel, hear these statutes and decrees which I'm teaching you to observe, that you may live. That you may live. In your observance of the commandments of the Lord your God, which I enjoin upon you, do not add anything to them or do not subtract for them. Observe them, for thus will you give evidence of your wisdom and intelligence to the nations. Statutes, decrees, commandments, laws. But the law, the commandments, as clear as they were not given as an end in themselves. They were always intended as a means to an end. They were intended as a means for preserving this incredible love relationship which people had with God, that God had established for them, that God had initiated with them. And if you doubt that they were meant to be a means and not an end, if you think laws and guidelines are meant to be that end in themselves, notice how Jesus treated the laws and the commandments and the statutes. He took them extraordinarily seriously. But he also always knew the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, as he says in another place. He's always in trouble, therefore, with these Pharisees for not keeping the letter of the law, but he always kept the spirit of that very law. Now come forward in time, if you will, to Jesus and the Pharisees you meet in this gospel. The gospel question this morning takes up the famous words and warning of the novelist and essayist Walker Percy in one of his novels, that lurking around the corner in every human heart is the possibility of getting all A's and flunking life. What does it mean to know all this stuff that we know? What must we do with what we know? How is it possible to be both brilliant and bad at the same time? And that's essentially what the teacher is saying to the Pharisees. When it comes to the commandments, at least, when it comes to religion, he's saying, you get all A's, you got it all right, you know it backwards and forwards. But the trouble is you're flunking life. The Pharisees were so good at following the law and keeping the rules. But in some important ways, they were neglecting this love that was at the heart of those laws and rules. They had lost their focus on what was the essence of those laws, this loving partnership with the divine and all of creation. I see it all the time. I see it in the church. I see it in our nation. It is so easy for us to nod and agree that, yes, the Pharisees got it wrong. They deserved the grade they got. But what should nag our consciences is that this lesson from this great teacher is not limited to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were respected religious people. They were quite devout. They nodded their heads at all the right time, and they never missed synagogue. They beat their breasts at the right time. They knelt down at the right time. They never missed what was theirs to do. They were not bad people. They were very serious about this stuff, but the rules and the laws began to replace, as you know, the spirit of the law for them began to get in the way of love. This happens all the time. And then they assumed everybody else should see the rules and the laws like they did, even with sometimes harsh judgment against them, because they weren't doing it perfectly. When all the while Jesus was saying to them, you're getting A's in this stuff, you got it all right, but you're flunking life. Don't you see? And as I said, it's not just in the world of religion that we get things backwards like that. Here at the university, at the places we work, in our offices where we work, even in our families, we can get straight A's, but still flunk life, every single one of us. So perhaps don't feel so good about those straight A's you got on that last report card. When while you're getting those straight A's in the classroom, you're living in fear most of your days. And you're cowering. And your eyes can't even meet the eyes of another walking down one of the sidewalks at your school. Don't be too proud of those straight A's or all those promotions you've gotten at work or that great salary you get if you can't forgive someone who hurt your feelings or even perhaps betrayed your trust. Don't be working so hard for those A's and getting it all right all the time if you're not learning how to be vulnerable to another human being, to lay down your control, your need for control to another human being, and how to share and how to take joy in other people's victories, and how to be faithful to someone over the long haul. I knew a guy, I'm sure we all have, who was the smartest guy in school, number one in his class. He was awkward socially, never worked on that, never wanted to. He was very insecure in himself. And despite that enormous IQ and those grades, number one in the class, he committed suicide soon after graduation. I see it all the time. We can do so well academically, but lack life skills, have no common sense, don't know how to maintain loving relationships. We've got all the theory now, but we don't have the real skill needed to live a normal, successful, happy life. We're flunking ordinary living. My friends, if there's one reassuring thought in all of this, at least for me, is that we are being taught day in and day out by this most excellent teacher. And like so many good teachers, so many of us have known, we have a teacher who will never, ever give up on us. A teacher who is eternally patient, eternally loving, and eternally merciful, and who has a great sense of humor. A teacher who's got our back, who doesn't want us to fail on any level, and will work tirelessly so that we do not flunk the thing that matters the most, at least to this teacher, and that is life. He wants us to succeed in our lives and in our loves. He wants us to succeed at this. We at the CSC want that for you too. We have this most excellent teacher who will work hard not to let us get straight A's and still flunk life, who will be teaching us qualities of compassion and self-respect, discipline, moral principles, all along the way. The truth is, talent can take us to the top, but character will keep us there. You and I will have lots of tests this year. To our students filling out those tests, meeting those deadlines, we want you to pass every one of those tests. But we will also have lots of tests this year in life and in love. We want you to pass them when they come your way. We at the Catholic Student Center are pulling for you. We're pulling for you throughout this year, every step of the way, in the classroom and in life. We're here to help you succeed at both. Is it possible to get straight A's in the classroom and flunk life? Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, I see it all the time.